Hello guys, this is part 2 of What If Naruto Was Raised by Third Raikage. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Training in the cave. 1 week later at night, Raikage's house, 12 a.m. A figure jumped past the wall that surrounded his house. En was hurrying toward the Jinkushiriki cave. Shit, I'm late, he thought, panicky. As he reached a cave next to where the pool lay, which was where they trained and fought there, he tensed suddenly. Before rolling quickly to the left, which was good since even in the dark En could see the glint of Yugito's katana gleaming in the scarce light provided from some torches they had gotten to help light up the cave, hit the place where he had been standing moments before. There were small rays of moonlight coming in from the ceiling from some of the cracks in the cave, adding in on the mystical look of the Jinchuriki cave. You're late, Yugito said flatly, still swinging the sword in quick jabs and arcs trying to hit her fellow Jinchuriki. En just kept dodging, though he did feel the katana whiz past him once, cutting off a piece of his hair. Sorry Yugito-chan, I was training with my dad on combining the shushin with my lightning armor and it got late and I fell asleep. Where is B? He asked before bending backwards when the sword came in on a swipe that could have taken off his head. Little impatient, aren't you? En deadpanned before quickly rolling when she tried to hit him again. Just get your sword out and fight me, Yugito demanded. We haven't been able to come here since before we became genin, since we either were too tired from training or we had missions. En nodded since he totally agreed. He quickly grabbed one of his swords sheathed on his back. Tonight, do you want to do a Jinchuriki fight? En asked her. Yugito sidestepped to the left as En's sword slashed at her before quickly trying to kick his arm to disarm him, but her leg was caught by En's other hand and was pushed backwards, losing her balance momentarily. When En saw Yugito lose her balance, he closed in on her using his sword as though it was another piece of his body, showing Yugito why he could use 7 swords at once. Clang! The sound echoed throughout the cave as Yugito's katana and En's sword struck each other, both stepping forward trying to overpower each other. En was slowly winning this, and Yugito quickly moved her sword to the side, making En step forward from when he was using his strength to overpower her. Yugito quickly used this to her advantage, using her speed to help her. En could only go on defense as Yugito skillfully slashed at him, not allowing him go on offensive unless he wanted to get stabbed. Yay, do you want to tag team against B? Yugito asked, to which En nodded while still dodging the deadly blade. Me and B may do our sword fight sometime too. I need to keep practicing my 7 swords dance since I haven't been able to use it in an actual battle like B. En told her as he skillfully avoided Yugito's deadly blade. I have to admit, it is pretty impressive that you and B can fight with 7 swords on your body. Where did you find the places to put them all? Yugito asked him. En avoided a particularly close slash of the sword. Me and B have a blade located on both our elbow joints, one on our left armpit, on our right side of the neck, one in the stomach, one on our right leg, and one in our mouth. En informed her smugly since he was very proud of his kenjutsu style. Yugito gave him a curious glance. You managed to get swords in all those places and never once thought of using your hands to hold a sword? She asked in amusement. En gave a playful glare at his fellow blonde. Me and B don't want to be original, so why not fight with a sword with no hands? Yugito shook her head in amusement. Only you and B would do something like that. Hey, since when have more or B done anything original? En asked with a grin. En started to go on the offensive. He jumped in the air trying to hit Yugito from above, but his sword was deflected by Yugito's katana. He jumped on a ledge of rock 5 feet high where Yugito followed him trying to get a hit on him. All of a sudden En tripped over a large chip in the rock, making him fall backwards. On instinct he tried to grab anything to stop him from falling. In this case it was Yugito's wrist. Yugito was already starting to tire from the fight and was caught by surprise and didn't have time to react and fell with En. Yugito and En suddenly found their faces an inch from each other with their noses touching. Yugito was lying on top on En with her hands on his chest. N's arm that wasn't holding Yugito's wrist was wrapped around her waist since he had grabbed her there as they fell on instinct. It also didn't help that they were sweaty from their fight and could feel each through their clothes, which was the case for Yugito since she had her hands on his chest and could feel the muscle there. Both realized what this looked like and both blushed up a storm. As they tried to get up, they froze when they heard chuckling behind them. Well, what do we have here? Are some sparks be coming from Lil 9 and Lil Miss 2? I see where this is heading. Ah, yeah, ya fool. A familiar voice spoke. Oh no, anyone but him. Thought the two younger Jinchuriki as they stood up, still blushing a storm. Big bro, it wasn't what it looked like, I swear. N said, trying to explain the situation. B smirked at his little brother. Oh, I think that was exactly what it looked like. Would you like me to leave this room for yourselves? I can find another one if you'd like. Yugito and N's blush, which had tuned down, returned full force, making them look like blonde tomatoes. Shut up, B. Yugito yelled at the older rapping Jinchuriki. We were practicing our kenjutsu while we waited for you and N tripped and grabbed me and I fell on him. It's not what it looked like. Whatever you say, Yugito, whatever you say, said the still grinning B. So where were you, big bro? I didn't see you at home for at least a week. N said, trying to change the subject. I went on a C rank mission with Team B. We were to protect a person from bandits, ya see. The guy was such a niche, but the mission went on without a hitch. B said with his usual swag. Yugito's eye twitched at B's rap but decided to not comment since this took his mind off what he walked into. By the way, N Pops told me about your border patrol. Good job with the fight and getting that scroll. B told him and raised his fist, to which N happily fist bumped with. Yay, and Dad even said I could learn a couple jutsu from it, and I learned this new jutsu called Shadow Clone Jutsu, and it allows us to experience what the clone experiences, so if we had one work on chakra control then we will learn whatever it learns. It's pretty legit. N said. B and Yugito looked at N in surprise. Wow, there is jutsu like that. Do you know what we could do with a jutsu like that? We could totally use this for our training, Yugito said happily. N showed Yugito and B the hand seals. We can't do too much and then dispel them at once since we would get a massive headache from all the memories, so we can't go overboard. N told them. So we just go a little under the overboard? B asked, to which N nodded happily. Oh yay, like we are going to underuse it, we just have to get not add 3 extra clones or something, that should be fine. N high-fived his brother. Yugito just shook her head in amusement at the two brothers. Okay, so what do you guys want to do first? Jinchuriki battle? She asked them. Jinchuriki battle, the two brothers said at once. Yugito nodded. Okay, let's start with the initial state first and then gradually go up. To which the others nodded. The trio jumped backwards from each other and slowly started to channel their Bu's chakra. Yugito's sky blue eyes changed to an amber color as her fingernails slowly turned into claws. A ability she got from Nibi is that she could turn her fingernails into long claws that could reach the size of a dagger or longer. It was also very strong since they had held their own against B and N's swords on multiple occasions. She hadn't actually used them in an actual battle since she was afraid that if someone found out about them then they could guess that they were training in their Bu's chakra and they weren't ready to tell anyone, at least not yet. She kept her claws at the same length as N or B's since they were just going to use taijutsu. N's eyes turned crimson with a black slit in the middle. His spiky hair turned even spikier and his whisker marks turned darker. Black marking appeared around his eyes. His fingernails turned into claws. B's eyes turned white with a purple tint. His hair got spiky even though they were still in their braids. His muscles seemed to get even bulkier. His fingernails turned into claws. N looked over at Yugito, who nodded, and as one rushed towards B intent on taking him out. Yugito reached him first, aiming for kick in the head, but was batted away by B using his left hand. Flipping in midair, she landed gracefully just as N reached B. N, seeing an opening since B's arm was up from batting away Yugito, quickly dashed to the left, aiming for B's left side with a punch. B realized what N was aiming for and tried to bend away but was too slow and was pushed backwards a couple feet from the power of the punch. Hey, good punch, bro. B commented. I may not be the strongest in strength, but I am the fastest and my punches still pack some heat. N said. This was true since the trio of Jinchuriki had noticed that when they were in their Jinchuriki forms that each was better in a different type of fighting. Yugito was the most agile of them while N was the fastest of them and B was the strongest of them and could easily shake off a hard hit. That didn't mean that N or Yugito were weak in strength though, since both could still pack a punch that could break bones if they hit as hard as they could on someone not in a Jinchuriki state. They guessed it was because of their view with Nibi being a cat. It was obvious that Yugito would be more agile and the Hachibi just screamed, muscle. So it was obvious that B would be the strongest in strength and foxes were known to be fast, which is why N was the fastest. Yugito joined up with N and together they charged the eldest Jinchuriki, with Yugito taking the left and N taking the right. B tried to dodge as best as he could, but N and Yugito got in some hits, causing some major bruises that were immediately healed from the chakra as he was pushed backwards from the force of the hits. 2 against 1. That's not very fun. B rapped. B started to go on offensive. He managed to punch N upwards in the jaw, making him fly up a little in the air. N flipped and landed feet first on B, making the older teen stumble from the added weight. Yugito, seeing her chance, kicked B in the chest while N jumped off of him as B was flung into the wall, causing a large hole to be formed from the power of the kick. N and Yugito grouped back. Did we get him? N panted, trying to catch his breath. His question was answered when a sudden burst of red chakra came from the hole where B had been flung in. In a flash, B was out of the hole in a one-tailed state with the bubbly form of Hachibi surrounding him. When N and Yugito saw this, they immediately called upon more of their tenant's chakra. Blue chakra swirled around Yugito as she went into her one-tailed state, while red chakra bubbled around N as he went in his one-tailed state. N charged at B with an incredible amount of speed, disappearing from where he was by Yugito to in the air next to B, aiming to kick him in the head. However, B was used to N's speed and quickly leaned backwards as N's foot passed by an inch away from his face. Acting quickly, B grabbed N's foot and spun him around his head before throwing at the wall, making a large hole. B sensed danger and immediately sidestepped, which was a smart move since Yugito was about to punch him. B started to try and hit Yugito with a series of punches and kicks, but Yugito was too agile and managed to dodge them all. When Yugito saw an opening in B's style, she immediately tried to punch him with her right hand but was caught off guard when B caught her wrist. It was bait, Yugito realized with a curse. B smirked and threw Yugito in the same hole N had just climbed out of, sending both of them back into the wall. B appeared in front of the hole where Yugito and N were struggling to get off each other, but stopped when B appeared in front of them, holding up his hand for them to stop. Alright, let's stop the fight for the night. Let's go and find some jutsu to learn since we still have some time to burn. B rapped. N and Yugito nodded and followed B to the rooms with all the techniques their predecessors had found during their lifetime. Alright, good job on the fight, you guys are getting better at this. The only reason why I managed to get you, Yugito, was because you took my bait. In a real fight, try to make sure it's not a trick. B told her, to which she nodded. Yugito glanced around the tunnel they were now traveling in with a smile. I'm glad you guys found this place, it's like our own training field. Yugito's smile turned to a frown. Next time you find something like this, you better tell me, not wait half a year. She warned them with a glare, to which the two brothers paled considerably. It was true that when they had told Yugito about the Jinchuriki cave, she had been excited to train with her Bu's chakra, but she had gotten pretty angry when she found out that they had withheld this information from her for so long, to which she had beaten the crap out of them. Both of the boys learned the hard way to never piss off the tiger that was Yugito. The trio of Jinchuriki were glad of the caves. Even though they had been here for over 6 years, there were still some places that they had yet to explore, though most of the things to learn were in the rooms with their number on it. N nodded. Don't worry, Yugito-chan, we won't. Turning his head to look at his brother, he continued, Hey bro, when do you think we can go to the island turtle? N asked. The island turtle was a large turtle that was big enough to be an island. It is considered a stronghold for Kumo, though it was barely used as such. It was filled with dangerous and wild animals. But what people didn't know, except for those three, it was also a place to become perfect Jinchuriki. There on the island were the Falls of Truth and a shrine for Jinchuriki. While they knew they weren't ready to face the falls or go in the shrine, they still wanted to go check the island out. The problem was convincing the two boys' father. They were going to ask to go on a training trip, but they didn't know if he would buy it. I don't know, and I'm probably going to ask Dad to go there for a training trip, but then he would probably ask why I'm taking you two and not my team. While I trust the kids, I don't think we are ready for anyone else to know about our Jinchuriki trainings, since if Pops finds out, he will probably kill us for doing something so dangerous without us telling him. B said, which N and Yugito nodded, since they knew that if the raikage had found out they had been training in their Bu chakra, especially for B since the other hosts had all died trying to control the chakra without his knowledge. Well, let's just say that they were pretty nervous for when he did find out. They weren't looking forward to facing a pissed off raikage. The man may be 65, but he's still scared even when he got mad. I kinda feel bad about not telling him though. We all know that when he and your older brother find out this, they're gonna kill us, you know that, right? Yugito asked. And that's the reason why we will tell them after we have full control of our Bu. I'd rather be in full Bu form when they try to use us as a punching bag. Besides, I know it's not cool to lie, but if they find out now, then they would stop us from coming here and train, and then we wouldn't be able to make our dream a reality. N said. They reached the main cave that had 9 tunnels on the left with numbers 1 to 9 above the entrance. The trio went through their designated numbers. N's pav. As N went into his room, he immediately went over to the half side filled with scrolls. The room hadn't changed at all, though only difference where some scrolls placed differently on the walls or on the desk. N had also replaced the wooden chair and put in a comfy chair he had brought in from his home after the original one had broken once he had sat down in it. B hadn't stopped laughing for hours as N tried to get the splinters out of his butt. He stopped laughing though when N hit him in the face with the remaining piece of the chair. The only other difference was that N had changed the bed sheets, making it a crimson color. After looking around, he randomly picked a random scroll. He sat down on his comfy chair and opened the scroll. He was surprised to see that it was on chakra flow. N had heard of chakra flow, where you combined your elemental element to an object or weapon. For example, if you infused lightning into a kunai with lightning, not only would it electrocute the person if hit, but it would be sharper and could cut through anything that was not fused with elemental chakra, either unless it was earth or the person had less control. N knew that B had trained in lightning chakra flow with his swords. N decided to try it and read the scroll. After he finished the scroll, he grabbed one of his swords, since they were made from a metal that uses elemental nature. To use lightning flow, you must imagine it sparking and constantly moving. No lightning can remain still, you must keep your chakra to be ever shifting like lightning. N thought as he repeated what the scroll said in his head. N started to channel his chakra into the blade, trying to follow the instructions. A few sparks came out of the blade but remained unchanged. "Gah, this is just like the leaf training," N thought. He reflected on what his brother had told him that day and tried again with more concentration. A small yet fragile haze of lightning came out of the sword for a few seconds before fading. It's better than the first, N thought optimistically. B's pav. B was searching for a certain scroll in a section of his bookcase that he had for his Jinchuriki abilities. Seeing one, he grabbed it before laying on the bed, using a lamp on the table as a light. He saw a jutsu that he had yet to learn and started to read. Ink release. Ink mist allows user to make a mist of ink, making it near impossible to see through, best used for making an escape. To use, inhale deeply before using ink to make a mist as you exhale. B mentally went through the hand signs needed for the jutsu before he headed out of his room back to the main cave. He entered the cave and took a tunnel out of the 5 tunnels on his left, which was the second one to the right, and started to following it. After going through multiple tunnels easily thanks to spending 6 years exploring these tunnels, he had arrived at one of his most favorite places to train in the cavern. The room was dark with only few torches scattered throughout the cave where he lighted them with a fire jutsu. Most of the light came from the side of the wall where a small hole opened up to the sky. It wasn't big enough for anyone to get through or notice, but it was big enough to let the moonlight in. Unlike most of the caves in the cavern, the ground had sand in it. There was a small pool that was actually an underwater tunnel that was large enough for them to have fights on water to help with their chakra control. He headed toward the middle of the cave where the sand remained untouched since the last time they were in here. He quickly went through the hand seals for the jutsu he was about to use and deeply inhaled. Ink release. Ink mist, B said as he exhaled and watched as a small cloud of ink came out. The ink mist was at least 5 feet wide and only went up to his waist. B frowned before going through the same thing again. This time the mist had gotten larger and had gone up to his shoulders. B nodded. It wasn't good for battle yet, but it was getting better. Yugito's POV. Yugito was searching around for a scroll to choose from the bookcase. Her room was much like N and B's, but with the color being dark blue like Nibi's fur. And her bed sheets being purple. She chose a scroll labeled Lightning Jutsu and went to lie down on her bed. Opening the scroll, she read the first jutsu on there. Lightning release. Lightning shot charges lightning to index and middle finger and release a string of lightning from the 2 fingers. Good for long to mid-range. Can be used for either paralyzing or knocking an enemy unconscious unless charged with more chakra. Yugito decided to try this jutsu since it would be good to know a jutsu used for incapacitating an enemy in case they did a kidnap mission for intel. She jumped off her bed and head out of her tunnel. When she went to the 5 tunnels on the left, she chose the third from the left and started walking. She soon arrived at a medium-sized cave filled with large boulders, though some had either been destroyed or had large holes in them. The Jinchuriki trio used this area for testing out new destructive jutsu. N used this area for his lightning armor to help create new techniques for it. A large boulder 2 times as tall as Yugito and 10 feet wide had a gaping hole in it 4 feet wide and a foot deep when N had used his lighting armor and used his brother's elbow bolt at full power. Yugito had to sympathize the guy who got hit by that. Yugito went over to a medium-sized boulder and backed up 5 feet. She started to channel lightning chakra to her 2 fingers as she put them together, aiming at the boulder, lightning style, lightning shot, and released the concentrated chakra from her fingers and watched as a small bolt of lightning shot out and hit the boulder in a second. She walked up to the boulder and inspected the damage done. There was a 4-inch wide and inch-deep hole in the side of the boulder. Yugito frowned since it was supposed to be a small hole from the concentrated energy, meaning she didn't use enough control. Yugito stepped back and continued to use the Just You until she was satisfied. After half an hour she managed to get the jutsu right and decided to step a few feet back to help with her aim. As she was charging up for another lightning shot, Yugito heard a yawn come from the back of her mind. "Hey Nibi, I didn't know you were asleep," Yugito thought to her via mental link. "Hey kitten, sorry, was just taking a little catnap," Nibi said as she sent a mental image of her stretching in her mindscape. "So did anything interesting happen while I was asleep?" Nibi asked her. Yugito blushed red. "No." Nibi leaned forward in her cage. "Something did happen. Come on kitten, give me the details." Nibi asked her. Yugito sighed. There was no way she would tell Nibi what had happened with her and N, but froze and started to curse herself as she had momentarily forgotten that Nibi could hear her thoughts. "Ooh, something happened between you and N. Details kitten, details." Nibi yelled from her mind, eager to know what happened with her container and N. Single quote. "Nibi. No, that didn't happen. Stop being such a pervert." Yugito scolded the perverted view in her stomach. As Nibi said those things, she thought back to when she fell on N. Damn it, she just did it again. "Ooh kitten, I'm so proud of you. Did you get a good feel of him? I bet when you felt his muscles you just wanted to ravage him." Nibi purred out. "Nibi. Fought. I'm just saying." Yugito sighed and was about to continue arguing with her perverted demon, but before she could, she felt a large pulse of B's chakra. This was their way of telling each other that it was time to leave. She left the cave with the boulders. She soon reached the main cave and saw that En was already there. Alright guys, I don't wanna pretend, but it's getting late and our time in the cave has to come to an end. Be wrapped. Man, we may not be able to come here for a while since Darui-sensei said that we had a mission that takes us out of Kumo tomorrow. En complained. Ye and me and Big Bro along with some storm are gonna go to the base that the guy you captured was going to and get rid of it. B said. The next time we are all in Kumo, let's meet back here. Yugito told them as they walked out of the cave toward the waterfall. Good luck on your mission, bro, you better kick that snake's ass. En told B as they jumped out of the waterfall. I will, me and Big Bro will totally kick that snake's, yeah. B said. The three Jinchuriki continued the rest of the way to their home in comfortable silence. Yugito split off from the two brothers to go to her own house while the two brothers continued on. As they arrived home and went to bed, both were wondering what their next missions would bring. Next day, Raikage Tower. Team 9 were standing in front of the Raikage as he read out their mission. Team 9, I have received an emergency mission from a small country called Wave. The shipping tycoon Gato has been suppressing the people of Wave until they were nothing more than slaves under his rule. There is a bridge being built that connects Wave to the mainland to help the people, but Gato does not want that. The bridge builder Tazuna had hired help from the Leaf, but once they had fought some low-level missing nin, they left him, saying it was too dangerous for them since he had lied about the mission ranks since he only had enough money to pay for AC rank. Team 9's eyes narrowed at the Leaf nin just leaving their client alone. Yes, he lied, but given the explanation it was obvious why he did. That ain't right, Pops. How could they leave the guy? En said angrily. The Raikage just nodded his head in agreement to his son's statement. Your mission could turn to B rank or above. I am confident that Eugenin can hold your own while Darui takes care of the bigger threats. En, you're at least high chunin in strength along with you, Yugito, and Ko is strong too, while Darui is one of my strongest junin. Your mission is to protect the bridge builder Tazuna while he builds his bridge and to take out Gato. Not only will this probably give us a treaty with Wave, but it will also show that Kumo is better than Konoha since they ran while we finished the mission. Don't fail. The Raikage said to where the team nodded their heads and replied, hi. En looked at his team with a smile, alright, let's go. And jumped out the window in the side of the room, causing it to shatter, and showered his father in glass. The Raikage sighed at his son's antics while brushing the glass off his head. I got to leave my windows open, he said to himself. He looked back at the remaining Team 9 and gave Darui a scroll. In here is the location of Tazuna. He is currently hiding in a small forest to avoid any more assassins. Now go follow my son before he gets lost. Team 9 nodded and headed out the door to get their other teammate before he heads in the wrong direction. Wave Country. After Team 9 had found En, who had started going in the opposite direction of Wave, they had started to tree hop to Wave. They only stopped to eat and sleep since they didn't want to have Tazuna be killed before they got there. They soon arrived at the woods after a couple hours of tree hopping. En activated his sensor and started to decrease the range, which will allow a better view that was closer and could pick up people with no chakra. He soon found a person in the middle of the woods where he informed his team and they speed off to meet their client. Tazuna was having a bad week. He had left Wave in the dead of night to get to Konoha to buy protection to help his country be freed from the tyranny of Gato. He knew lying was bad, but he was desperate, damn it. And when his guards that consisted of 3 kids and 1 lazy Junin had met resistance, they decided to ditch him in the middle of the woods, saying that it was too dangerous and that they would send his mission to another nation if they were willing to take it. He felt like giving up. Tazuna froze when he heard a man's voice call out behind him. Are you Tazuna, the bridge builder? He turned around and saw a tall, dark-skinned man wearing a white vest, a girl with platinum hair and blue cat-like eyes, a brown-haired boy in some sort of red armor, and a muscular blonde boy wearing red shades and had 7 swords sheathed around him. Tazuna swallowed thickly, thinking that they were here to kill him. Why, yes, are you here to kill me? To his surprise, the man shook his head. No, we are here to protect you from Gato and to take Gato out. Tazuna felt his spirits rise before he realized something. But I only have enough money to pay against bandits. I can't afford to pay you for anything higher. I'm sure you would know of this, so why are you helping me? The tall blonde boy spoke up. My dad saw reason to why you lied to Konoha about the mission rank, and if I was in your shoes I would have done the same. Kumo ain't like Konoha where those cowards run instead of doing their mission. We fight to the end, cause this ain't some sort of game. The boy said with a smile. Tazuna felt something he hadn't felt in a while. When he tried to think of what it was, he then realized it was hope. He quickly bowed to them. Thank you. I promise you will not regret this. How can I ever repay you? The blonde smiled at Tazuna. You can thank us by building that bridge and giving your country hope again. The man motioned toward the blonde. This is En Yatsuki. I'm Darui, the girl is Yugito Ni, and the other one is Koabuyoki. Tazuna nodded, making sure to memorize the team members' names. He noticed how En and Yugito seemed to send off a powerful aura, not as powerful as Darui's, but even he, a civilian, could tell that they were pretty strong compared to the pink-haired fangirl Banshee, the creepy pale guy with a weird smile, and the emo brooder from Konoha. Tazuna grinned. All right, let's go. We have a bridge to build. En grinned and pumped his fist in the air with the rock sign. All right, let's go kick Gatos. He made to leave but was stopped by his sensei. Darui looked at Tazuna. Since you have already been delayed waiting for us, En will carry you until we hit the ocean. En nodded and motioned for Tazuna to get on his back. This makes me feel old. Tazuna complained, much to the amusement of En and his team. Soon enough the Team 9 was off heading toward the ocean. It took the team a day to reach the shore, with the only conversation was between En and Tazuna, where he was trying to convince Tazuna that rapping was cool and that he should try it, much to the man's annoyance. As they arrived they saw a man in a small boat. The man recognized Tazuna and quickly waved him over. The team got in the boat and the man pushed the shore with his paddle before paddling in the direction of wave. The team sat there for what seemed like hours, trying to see through the heavy mist that seemed to cling to them. All of a sudden a large half-finished bridge emerged from the mist, towering over the people in the boat. En gave a low whistle. Damn, that is one big bridge, he said to himself. They soon arrived at the shore. Everyone but the boatman got out. This is as far as I go. Good luck, Tazuna, the boatman said before turning on his motor and disappearing in the mist. The team headed off on the path toward Tazuna's house. After walking for a couple minutes, En tensed and suddenly threw a kunai in the bush, making his team tense up, waiting for an attack. The bushes rattled and out popped a white rabbit. Tazuna relaxed before turning angrily to En. What the hell? I thought someone was attacking us, and it was just a bunny. He was about to continue, but he noticed how the ninja had not relaxed at all and seemed to be even tenser. All four were thinking, a white rabbit, but it's summer, they only turn white during winter, which means that as was kept indoors. Kawarmi. En faintly heard a whistling sound and tackled Tazuna while yelling, get down. A large zanbato impaled the ground where Tazuna had stood. All of a sudden a man appeared on the sword. The man was shirtless and only had a belt on his chest, wearing baggy pants with the striped pattern and camo wrist warmers extending to the elbows, along with two being on his legs. Darui instantly recognized the man from the bingo book, Zabuza Momochi, a member of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist, a rank missing nin for planning a coup d'etat against the Mizukage. Zabuza chuckled. Well, it's nice to be recognized, but let's cut the chit-chat. I'm on a mission and I need to kill the bridge builder. Zabuza made a one-hand seal while lifting up his massive sword with the other as a heavy mist came from nowhere. Darui cursed, not being able to see through the mist. Guys, protect Tazuna. A dark laugh came from all directions. There are 8 vital spots on the body: heart, kidneys, jugular, liver, spine, subclavian artery, lungs, and the larynx. Which one shall I choose? Zabuza taunted while directing his ki at the genin and Tazuna. He was surprised to see that the two blondes weren't affected by his ki while the other one was only looking around quickly. He was surprised since he assumed that the 3 genin would be shaking in their boots. He smirked. He always did like a challenge. All of a sudden Zabuza appeared by Tazuna in an attempt to cut the old man in half with his cleaver sword. He looked like he was about to succeed when clang. He looked up in surprise to see the blond boy wearing shades with two swords in his hands blocking the sword from cutting the man in half. Impressive. He must have amazing strength to be able to stop my attack. This is going to be fun, Zabuza thought with a smirk. Still holding the two swords in his hands, charged his right foot with his crimson lightning and side-kicked Zabuza in the face at high speeds thanks to his lightning. He was surprised to see Zabuza turn into a puddle of water. Water clone, he thought. Two Zabuzas appeared out of the mist heading toward N. He got in a kenjutsu stance, deciding to only use 2 of his 7 swords. N ran toward the clones as one clone swung his cleaver sword aiming for his waist, intent on cutting him in half. N, still running, moved to his knees and bended backwards and watched as the blade came an inch above his eyes. Still moving forward, he slashed at the clone that tried to attack him and cut off his leg, only for him to turn into water too. N quickly rolled to the right in time as the other clone's sword struck the place where had been moments before. He jumped to his feet and swung his 2 swords in an arc, aiming for the head. The clone's sword struck his and both struggled to overpower the other. Zabuza was slowly moving his sword forward. Thanks to his age, he was stronger than N. N, seeing this, narrowed his eyes and started to channel lightning chakra to his 2 swords. Crimson lightning came out of his swords and started to cut through the large cleaver. The clone, realizing what was going on, tried to get his sword out but was too slow, and the 2 swords cut through the large sword and struck the clone's chest, causing it to turn into a small puddle of water. N glanced back toward his team and saw Yugito and Ko each fighting their own Zabuza clones. Since neither seemed to need his help, he hurried to where the sounds of metal striking against metal were coming from. He arrived near a lake and saw his sensei and Zabuza fighting on the shore, each with their respective cleaver swords. N appeared several feet away from Zabuza, just far enough for him to not notice him thanks to his attention being directed at Darui, but close enough for him to perform his jutsu. Crimson lightning surged through his swords and he struck the water with his 2 swords while directing the lightning chakra toward Zabuza while saying, "Lightning release, shock current." Zabuza heard the sound of electrified water and glanced behind him, and his eyes widened in shock as he saw the red lightning coming toward him at fast speeds. He jumped away quickly, but the lightning managed to hit his left foot. He grunted in pain as the lightning stung at his leg. He shrugged the pain off. He wouldn't have been a good ninja if pain stopped him from completing his mission, even if it hurt like a bitch. He looked over at En, who was smirking that his jutsu still managed to hit him. "You're good, kid, let's see how good." And he charged toward En, cleaver aimed for his head. En ducked and tried to cut Zabuza in the waist with his right sword. Keyword tried. Zabuza caught En's wrist before he could hit him. Zabuza smirked, seeing that he had the kid trapped before he saw a glint of light in the corner of his eye. He quickly let go of En and moved backwards as Darui's sword slashed through the air where he had been moments before. Darui smirked at him. "You shouldn't have forgotten there was another opponent." "TCH. I recognize you now. You are Darui of the Black Lightning, a student of the 3rd raikage, and was given the secrets of his Black Lightning. You have quite a large bounty on your head. I'll be happy to collect that," Zabuza stated. Zabuza sidestepped quickly as En's lightning-covered sword slashed where he had been moments before. En grinned at Zabuza. "My dad was always a good teacher." Zabuza's no eyebrows rose up in shock. "The 3rd raikage is your father?" En smirked and nodded. Crimson lightning started to cover En. It wasn't much, only around 15%, which was the amount he fought Mizuki with. In a blur of speed, En shot forward, intent on taking down the man in front of him. Zabuza hadn't expected this and barely had time to bring his sword up to stop En's swords from stabbing him in the chest. "That's the lightning release armor used by the 3rd raikage and his oldest son A. I'll be damned, I never knew that the 3rd had another son," Zabuza thought in shock. En noticed Darui going through a set of seals and jumped back. Zabuza turned to Darui just in time to see him finishing his seals. Lightning release. Wave of inspiration, Darui yelled out while channeling large amounts of lightning from his mouth. The large amount of lightning surged forward toward Zabuza before he could even react. He was hit by the large amount of lightning and was thrown backwards toward the shore. En and Darui headed toward the place Zabuza had crashed to see him shakily get up from the tree with lightning sparking around his body. En noticed Yugito and Ko running toward them, already having finished their own clones. Just as En and Darui had arrived by Zabuza, Sanban needles hit Zabuza in the neck, making him collapse dead. "Thank you for weakening him, I have been hunting him for quite a while," a monotone voice came from the trees as a single person appeared by Zabuza. The person was dressed in black and wore a Kiri Hunter Nin mask. He picked up Zabuza and put him on his shoulder. He turned toward the Kumo ninja before bowing. "Thank you, it would have been difficult to fight him by myself." He left in a shushin. En glanced at his sensei. "Yo sensei, why did we just let the guy take the body?" Darui looked at his student before shrugging. "It would have taken us time to get rid of it, now let's go get Tazuna home." The group walked over to where Tazuna was hiding behind a rock. When he heard footsteps, he looked over the rock and saw his guards. "Is it over?" he asked fearfully. En rolled his eyes, though you couldn't see them behind his shades. "No, we decided to take a 5-minute break, we'll get back to the fight in a couple minutes," he said sarcastically. "All right team, let's head out," Darui ordered his team. The rest of the trip was uneventful. They stuck towards the woods, deciding to not go to town to make sure Gato didn't find out that Tazuna was still alive and back in town. They soon reached a medium-sized house that was 2 stories high. The house seemed to be white, but the wood had started to decay around the edges and the paint had been peeled until only small patches of white could be seen, and even then the weather had turned it into a grayish color. A young woman came out the door. "Father, you're okay," she cried before hugging her father, which he happily returned. She then noticed Team 9 standing behind Tazuna. "Father, are these the ninja from Konoha?" she asked him. Tazuna scoffed. "No, when I hired a team from Konoha and we were attacked by some low-ranked ninja, they decided it was too dangerous for them and left me on the road, saying that they'll send my mission request to the other countries if anyone would take a high-class mission with only enough for AC rank." The woman looked at her father in shock. "How could they leave you like that?" "But then who are these guys?" she asked. Tazuna gestured to Team 9 inches. "This is Darui with his team. The blonde with shades and the swords is En Yatsuki." En gave the peace sign. "Yugito ni." Yugito smiled at her before bowing. "And Ko Abuyoki." Ko bowed in greeting. Tazuna smiled at his daughter. "They are from Kumogakure. The raikage saw why I had to lie about the mission ranking and sent them here to help us." He continued to smile. "And these guys are the real deal, not like those 3 genin from Konoha with the lazy sensei. They just fought a really powerful guy a half-hour ago and they got skill." The woman smiled before remembering something. "Oh, forgive me, I haven't introduced myself. I am Tsunami," she introduced herself. "Nice to meet you," En said happily. The team went inside where they each got a room to themselves. They went to the kitchen table where Ko decided to say what everyone else was thinking. "Sensei, I think Zabuza is still alive. Attacking the base." Tazuna looked at the Kumo ninja in shock. "What do you mean he is alive? That masked guy killed him," he said in shock. Ko shook his head. "He used Sanban needles. My clan makes up most of Kumo's hunter nin and few use those as a weapon to kill. It's used more to stun an enemy, or in this case friend." Yugito spoke up. "And another thing is that the ninja took the body with him. It's standard procedure to immediately get rid of the body once the target is dead." En nodded at her words. "Yay, that guy was a big ol' fake. Man, it seems we ain't gonna get a break," he sighed as he leaned back in his chair with his arms crossed. "I knew this mission wasn't going to be dull," Darui said. Tazuna looked around nervously. "So that means that he can appear at any time?" he asked worriedly. Darui shook his head. "Zabuza is probably suffering from large chakra exhaustion from when he fought me and En. Not to mention he was hit point blank by my lightning release. Wave of inspiration, and his leg was hit by En's lightning release. shock current we have a week tops, until then we will train while protecting you from any other assassins. Darui told him. Tazuna nodded. Okay, the bridge should be finished pretty fast, my guess by next week. Darui continued on. Until then we shall train, and when you go to the bridge we will send clones or one of us so that you are still protected while we can still get some training done. Now let's head up to bed, we got a big week ahead of us, but before we go I wanna ask you something N. How do you know chakra flow? That's something that Junin learn, it's uncommon to see a genin use it. He asked curiously. B taught it to me. I saw him use it once with his swords and I asked him what it was and he showed me the instructions on how to do it and I winged it from there. En lied quickly, not wanting Darui to find out how he really learned it. Darui bought the lie and just gave a nod. Alright, we should have a guard watch. En, you can start after 4 hours, wake me up. En nodded and headed outside while the rest of his team went to bed. He jumped up on the roof and lied down on the flat roof looking at the stars while using his sensor ability to look for any would-be assassins. As he looked at the stars he thought of his older brothers and their mission to Orochimaru's base. He wasn't worried about them since A is an S-rank ninja and could fight Orochimaru head-on if he is even there, and B was an elite Junin and they had Storm as backup. I wonder how it went. En thought as he gazed at the stars. 2 days ago, near Orochimaru's base. A glanced around at his team before he looked down on a map of the base that Hawk had drawn from using his Hawk summons. It was nighttime and the only light was from the full moon shining down on the ninja, making their armor and swords glint. Alright, everyone knows the plan? He asked the Storm Nin and his brother, who all nodded their heads. Yay, big bro. Now let's get this show on the road. Oh yay. B rapped. Aside at his brother's antics, B. This is not the time for your rap. He said angrily, not raising his voice in case there were ninja hidden close by. A looked at his comrades. Okay, Sparrow and Hawk will go on the west side of the base and assassinate any guards, while Mole and Badger will use their earth jutsu to create a hole in the east side of the base. Raccoon, Bear, Lynx, and Horse will create a distraction on the north side. I will go with you guys once the people come out. Weasel and Bee will go through the hole, accompanied by Mole and Badger, and get rid of any of the guards left in the base. Bee and Weasel will then split off and go to the lowest level and find any of the children that the snake bastard experimented on, find any survivors and get them out of there. If any of you spot Orochimaru, tell me immediately via radio, since I'm the only one who can fight him toe-to-toe. I told them as he motioned for B to follow him to talk to him in private. Why is the demon brat here again? Hawk murmured to Sparrow, not intent on having his leader hear him. I didn't, but someone else did. Hawk felt a blade on the back of his neck. He warily turned around to see Weasel behind him holding his tanto now pointed at his heart. Do not insult B-sama, Hawk, Weasel said emotionlessly, though you could hear a hint of anger in his voice. Why would you give that demon any amount of respect, Weasel? Hawk said angrily. For many reasons. 1, he is the son of our raikage. 2, he is a very skilled shinobi and I am impressed with his strength, and 3, he saved your life, your friend's lives, and your family's lives 13 years ago when the Hachibi was released and was sealed inside him. 1. So I believe those are very good reasons for us to give B-sama respect. Weasel told him with anger still evident in his tone. Him and his little brother are demons and the girl is a demon whore. They are. He was about to continue but stopped when he felt a monstrous amount of ki directed at him. Turning around with a pang of fear, he saw behind him with fury burning in his eyes, with his fists clenching together. I suggest you listen to Weasel, Hawk, because if you ever insult my little brothers or Yugito in front of me, I will end you. A roared, not caring if anyone could hear him. Lightning started to spark around him, showing he was about to use his lightning armor to kill the one who insulted his little brothers and Yugito, whom he saw as a little sister. Thankfully for Hawk, rescue came in for him before he met a very, very, very painful death from a in the form of B. Whoa, chill big bro, I know what he said wasn't right, but we can't just kill the guy right before the big fight. B said, trying to calm his older brother down. B, he just called you, and Yugito demons, and I will never have people call that if it's within my power. As your big brother, I have to protect my little brothers, and Yugito is like a little sister to me. A retorted angrily, still glaring at the quivering Hawk. I know, bro, just forget it. B said calmly. A took several deep breaths before glancing around the room where all the storm ninja had taken several steps back in fear of the pissed off and not wanting to get involved. Does anyone else want to say something about my little brothers or Yugito? A demanded. The storm ninja quickly shook their heads. A snorted. Good. He walked off toward the base before stopping and calling over his shoulder, move out. To which the storm ninja quickly followed, going to their designated areas. With B headed off toward his position with Weasel following behind him while Mole and Badger were ahead of them already heading toward the base. Thanks, Weasel, for sticking up to us. B murmured to the masked storm ninja. I was just doing what everyone else should be doing in the village, respecting you, En-sama, and Yugito-sama as the heroes you are, B-sama. Weasel said. Hey, you know you're the only one to call us that. It's kinda weird to be called with that much respect from someone. It's relieving to know that there are people who don't see us as monsters. B replied. You do deserve the respect, B-sama. You saved your people's lives when the Hachibi was released all those years ago. The fact that you have managed to keep the beast sealed away for over 13 years while the previous hosts only kept the Hachibi contained for a few years tops shows your willpower and strength, something that I greatly respect. Weasel said. B-sama, I like the ring to that. B said, smiling. The rest of the trip was silent. Both decided to not speak since they were in enemy territory. They stopped on a mountain ridge as they gazed down on the base. The base was dirt brown and only a story high, though they knew there were more levels down below. B and Weasel saw Mole and Badger at the edge of the forest near the east wall. All right, time to rock, B thought as he waited for the signal. With Sparrow and Hawk, the two bird-masked ninja head toward the west side of the base. Wow, I have never seen A-sama so pissed before. I seriously thought he was going to kill you, Hawk. If B hadn't intervened, you would have been killed, very painfully too. Sparrow commented to his fellow storm ninja. Hawk decided to not answer and just focused on the path before him. The two storm waited for the signal when they saw a bolt of lightning flash across the sky. Now. The two thought. West side guards. Two guards were patrolling the west side of the base, though neither were straining themselves to look for any threats. After all, they didn't think Kumo would ever find them. Were they in for a surprise? Man, this is so boring. It's not like Kumo is ever going to find us. One of the guards complained. Yay, Kumo is so dumb. If they can't find this base, I doubt they will ever find this place, don't you think, Yugo? The other guard replied with a smirk. The smirk disappeared when he didn't receive an answer. He turned around in time to see Yugo on the ground bleeding from a slash in his throat. He didn't have time to yell when he felt a knife slice his throat and he died and fell to the ground with a small thud. HMPH, you shouldn't underestimate Kumo, Sparrow said to the corpse, and though you couldn't see it because of his mask, a smirk was on his face as he looked at the bodies of the men who had dared invade his country. Sparrow looked over to Hawk and nodded, and they both headed toward the base, intent on killing the people who invaded their home and kidnapped their people. North side. Bear, Raccoon, Lynx and Horse saw the flash of lightning summoned by their leader and charged forward. Horse and Lynx quickly went through a set of hand signs. Fire style. Firestorm, Horse said as he unleashed a large wall of burning flames at the doors of the base. Wind style. Whirling winds, Lynx said as he held his palms out and a large amount of wind chakra was released from his hands. The two jutsu hit each other as they reached the door. It turned into a monstrous ball of white inferno that wrecked through the entire wall and through the base. The four ninja hurried through the destroyed walls, ignoring the burned corpses of those caught in the inferno. All of a sudden, 5 enemy ninja appeared out of nowhere and attacked the storm ninjas. The storm nin took out their swords and defended against the attackers. While the enemy had the advantage of surprise, the storm they were badly outmatched. The Storm were the strongest of Kumo and these were barely high genin and chunin ninja. It was a piece of cake. Raced into the hole after his team, he was surrounded in his lightning armor. He quickly barreled straight through a group of enemy shinobi before any could react, much less get away. Though wasn't using his full power and speed in his armor, he was still fast enough to only be a blur. An enemy ninja tried to form a jutsu to attack the Storm Nin, keyword tried. Appeared out of nowhere with his arm at his throat, lariat. Yelled as he crushed the man's throat with his electrically charged arm. Zoomed around the room attacking more ninja until one by one they all fell. Glanced around the destroyed room. Orochimaru hasn't appeared, is he not here? Whatever, I got a mission to do, we gotta show that snake bastard you don't mess with Kumogakure. With B, Weasel, Mole, and Badger. B saw the flash of lightning summoned by his brother, go. He said. Badger and Mole flashed through the same hand seals and placed their hands on the wall of the base, earth style, earth and decay. The dirt wall started to dissolve until there was only a large hole and dirt covering the floor. The four ninja jumped into the hole where they found themselves in a dark hallway where the only light was the moon from outside and the torches on the walls. Mole and Badger went to the left of the hallway to take care of the rest of the ninja in that section while B and Weasel took the right. Weasel had his Tonto out and B had 2 of his 7 swords since he couldn't use all 7 in such an enclosed place. The 2 ninja met few resistance and those they did met were easily dealt with. They soon reached the lowest floor and found a tunnel that turned into 2. B looked at Weasel, I'll take left, you take right. Weasel nodded his head and headed off into the right tunnel. B ran through the tunnel. All of a sudden a ninja appeared in front of him. The ninja went through hand seals and yelled out, fire style, fireball jutsu. B kept on running. The ball of fire hit him and the ninja smirked, however that smirk disappeared when he saw B run out of the fire unharmed. How? The ninja yelled before he noticed that B's skin was grayish and looked like hide. He didn't have time to ponder on what it was before B struck him with his sword, making him fall to the ground, dead. B deactivated his ox hide and continued running until he reached a pair of metal doors. He opened the doors and stopped, shocked at what he saw. Lab equipment was everywhere along with blood, so much blood splattered on the walls and floor. A pair of scientists looking through a file looked up and saw with surprise at the unexpected ninja. Hey, this place is off limits. This is for the people to experiment on the test subjects. One of them said before he noticed the hiate on the teen's forehead. He paled. Kumo has found us. He thought frantically. B ground his teeth in anger. These men had performed terrible experiments on people and children, they made him sick. In a flash he was between the 2 scientists. A glint of his swords through the dark was the only warning as the 2 scientists' bodies split in half. B glanced around at the equipment around him and summoned 10 shadow clones, ordering them to seal anything on the experiments and the notes. B looked around to find any survivors but found none. The clones gave him all the info they could find before he left. B ran out of the room and down the hall. A blur appeared by him as he ran through the hallway. He didn't need to look to see it was Weasel. Any survivors? B asked him. Weasel shook his head. They were all dead, some weren't even all the way together. I did get some info though on the things Orochimaru's done. Weasel said. B clenched his teeth in anger when he heard what happened to the people who were here. Orochimaru, you bastard, B thought angrily. B and Weasel head up toward the upper levels. The place was silent. Looks like Asama and his team took out all the enemies. Weasel stated, to which B nodded. The 2 ninjas soon arrived outside of the base where they headed toward the group of Storm who were huddled by A. There you 2 are, I was getting worried. A said as he spotted his brother and Weasel. Sorry A-sama, B-sama and I had to fight down to the labs and had to get any info we could find. Weasel said. A glanced at his brother, were there any survivors? He asked B. B shook his head, no bro, they were all dead. He said solemnly. A clenched his fists before looking around at his team. None of them had died and only Horse had any injuries. which was just a deep cut on his arm that was being healed by Mole. Let's head back to Kumo, we're done here, he said. As the team of Storm Ninja left, a lit the fuse that was connected to exploding tags that they had placed inside the base. A watched as the base blew up forever, hiding what monstrous things had happened here. A heard his brother approach him. We'll get that snake, bro, he ain't gonna get away with this. B said, to which A nodded, and the two brothers followed their team back home. Back in Kumo, Raikage's office. The Raikage listened as A gave them their report. His eyes gleamed with anger when he heard of what happened to the people who were experimented on. I see. I want to have 2 storm teams deployed to patrol that area with one of our fastest messenger birds to see if Orochimaru comes to the base, he said. The Raikage dismissed the storm ninja as the report ended. B stepped forward. Dad, we can't let this fly. We gotta make that snake and hurt him until he wants to cry, B told his father. A for once didn't try to hit his brother for his rap and even agreed with him for this one and probably only time. The Raikage looked at his second son before nodding his head in agreement. I agree, B. We need to find Orochimaru and show him why you don't mess with Kumogakure. I'll send out squads of Thunder, too, to track down the bastard, he said. B and A nodded. Now there is another reason why I had you stay, the old Kage said to his eldest and second eldest son. I think it's time we tell N of his origins. B and A looked at their dad in surprise. When? A asked his father. When he gets back from his mission to Wave, the old Kage told him. Silence reigned in the room. A and the Raikage both knew that they were afraid of telling N. They didn't want to see any betrayal in his eyes or that he would stop seeing them as family. They both knew that no matter what happened they would always see N as their son brother. They were family and he was their son and little brother. B wasn't worried, this was Lil 9, there was no way that they would stop being family. Even if they weren't related by blood they were brothers and that would never change for him and he knew it would be the same for N. Don't worry, Lil 9 won't stop seeing us as family, we are a family. We can't be the awesome Yatsuki clan without him, B said with his usual smile. A and the Raikage nodded with smiles of their own. No matter what happened the 4 would always be family. He was 5 when the Hachibi was sealed in him. Hunter Nin or trackers. Wave Country. Tazuna's house, 4 days after arrival. Team Darui had been training. Even though Darui knew that his students could hold their own against a mid-chunin and with En and Yugito working together they could fight a low junin, he didn't want to take any chances. The team was currently eating dinner with Tazuna, Tsunami, and a young boy named Inari who was a quiet boy that would always glare at the group of ninja. When they asked why Inari didn't like them, Tazuna explained what happened to a man named Kaiza and how he was killed by Gato to set an example for those who defied him. This along with seeing the state of the town where the stores barely had any food and the streets were lined with beggars filled the Kumo ninja with rage at seeing what Gato had done to the people of Wave. So Darui, how is your training going? Tsunami asked the dark-skinned man. It's going great. We're gonna make Gato drop like a weight. En rapped exuberantly. Tazuna and Tsunami looked over at Yugito for a translation. She sighed since she was the best out of anyone in Kumo besides A and the Raikage who could understand N and B when they rapped. What he means is that our training is going great and that we'll be able to eliminate Gato, she translated. Inari looked down at his plate. Why do you even try? You're just going to die, he muttered darkly glaring at his plate of rice and fish. Inari. Tsunami scolded her son. En looked at the boy before taking off his red shades and looked the boy in the eyes. We are going to get rid of Gato, he said with conviction. Tears leaked from the young boy's eyes. Shut up. You try and pretend that you understand us. Like you know what pain is. All your life you've lived protected in a shinobi village. You don't know what it means to suffer and to know pain. You, Inari cried out before En punched the table making it crack from the force. Inari looked into the boy's eyes and his eyes widened when he saw the boy's eyes. En's eyes, which were the color of the sky and full of life and happiness, were the color of a vengeful ocean filled with anger. His pupil was a slit. You think I don't know pain? En stated angrily. My entire life my brother, Yugito-chan, and I have been treated as demons for something that happened that was out of our control. Our whole lives we have been looked at with the same eyes. Eyes full of hate and fear, eyes that say, go away, why don't you just go die? En continued on, not noticing Tazuna and Tsunami's eyes widening on what the normally happy boy was saying, but En looked at Inari, who didn't know what to say. My brother, Yugito-chan, and I never let them get to us, we never hated them back. We swore to ourselves that we become the protectors of the same people who scorned and feared us, that we can prove to them that we aren't demons. And never once did any of us stop trying to achieve this and give up. We didn't stop and cry. We continued on, knowing if we just stopped nothing would be achieved. En glared at Inari. So before you tell us that you know of pain, remember you have a mother and grandfather who love you more than anything. That your grandfather is doing the same thing my brother, Yugito-chan, and I are doing, fighting against the so-called impossible. Your grandfather is defying Gato, who you say is invincible, but yet when he sends assassins to kill him they failed and the bridge is still standing. Gato is not unbeatable. If he was, then your grandfather would be dead and the bridge would have been destroyed. En stood up from his chair and walked out the door. The room was silent. Yugito made to follow her fellow Jinchuriki but stopped when she felt a hand on her shoulder. Turning around she saw that it was Darui. Let him go, he needs to be alone. Tazuna and Tsunami were trying to understand to why the boy, who was so full of life and happiness, could have lived under such a life and still be so happy and carefree. Darui, is what En said true? Why was the boy treated so bad? Tazuna asked the man. Yugito decided to answer. Tazuna, do you know what a Jinchuriki is? When Tazuna shook his head she continued, do you know what a Bu is? Aren't they chakra monsters? From the Aikibi to the Kyubi? Tazuna asked him, to which Yugito nodded her head. Jinchuriki means power of human sacrifice. A Jinchuriki is a person who has a tailed beast sealed inside them. Yugito explained, much to Tazuna's, Tsunami's, and Inari's surprise. Jinchuriki are often hated and feared of the beast that lies within them. They are viewed as the very beast sealed inside them, though they themselves are just the container. Yugito looked down at her plate. The life of a Jinchuriki is a hard life where only few don't see you as the beast inside them, and even fewer who would try to befriend them. Most Jinchuriki go mad from the hate and either release their beast, which kills them in the process, or become insane and bloodthirsty, trying to find a reason to exist. Yugito said. En said you were one too, Yugito. Tsunami said. Yugito slowly nodded her head. Yes, inside me contains the Nibi, the two-tailed cat. She said, still looking at the plate of food, not wanting to see the same looks of fear and hate in their eyes. She jumped a little in her seat when she felt Tsunami's arm wrap around her in a hug. I'm so sorry, she murmured. Yugito could only sit in silence. She knew of the beasts they carried and wasn't afraid of her and En. That ain't right, girly, for you, En, and his brother to be treated like that. It's obvious you aren't the Nibi, since for one you aren't even a cat. Tazuna said while trying to make a joke to lighten the mood. It worked, since Yugito smiled a little, grateful that the two didn't fear or hate her and En. She turned to Darui. Sensei, I'm gonna head upstairs and go to bed. She left, leaving Inari, Tazuna, Tsunami, Ko, and Darui in the room. Darui glanced at Ko, who had remained silent during the whole thing. You know, he said, gaining Ko's attention, if two civilians can see En and Yugito for who they truly are, means that you could see the same as them. He said before heading off to his own room to sleep, leaving Ko, who looked at the door where he had left before leaving for his own room, deep in thought. The next day, in Gato's base. In Gato's stronghold, Momochi Zabuza rested, recovering from his fight with Darui and En. A young female-looking boy was tending to his wounds. You know, if you keep this up you may one day die, Zabuza-sama, the boy said. I underestimated them. I won't next time, he stated. The boy was about to retort when the door opened and slammed against the wall with a loud bang. There, standing between two men with swords, stood the country tyrant and millionaire Gato. Gato himself was a short midgety man with a cane wearing a dark suit and sunglasses. He didn't look very happy. You lost. He yelled angrily at the recovering Zabuza. I spent good money on you and you lose to one man and 3 kids. He ranted. Zabuza glared at the midget man in front of him, his ki leaking out. I wasn't expecting to fight Darui of the Black Lightning. He said. He is an S-rank ninja and I didn't expect to fight a son of the 3rd raikage. He continued on. Gato had a confused look on his face before his anger took him over. So? I paid good money for you and I'm not going to have you die on me. And what is so big a deal of the kid? Who cares if he is the son of the raikage? He scoffed out. Zabuza glared at him. It's a big deal since no one even knew that the 3rd raikage even had a 3rd son, especially that said son knows the freaking lightning release armor. Gato just kept on looking confused. So what, it doesn't sound like a big deal. Zabuza scoffed at the man's idiocy. The lightning release armor is a just you created by the 3rd raikage where you take lightning manipulation to the highest and make it course through your body, making your nerves and muscles move quicker. It is one of the deadliest jutsu ever created, second only to the Hiroshin, which was created by the 4th Hokage. The only ones who use this just you are the 3rd raikage and his eldest son A, who is known to be the fastest man alive. With the death of the 4th Hokage, the mere fact that the kid is able to perform the just you shows how skilled he is. Not to mention the fact that his lightning was red, which means he has some sort of bloodline, Zabuza explained to the tyrant. Gato just glared at him. Even if he does know a good jutsu, you still got your kicked by a freaking kid. Demon of the Mist, more like Baby of the Mist. He stretched out his hand to Zabuza's face wrappings. Let's see what you really look like, Demon Baby. All of a sudden his hand was grabbed by the girlish-looking boy. The boy glared at Gato, breaking his hand in the process, making the midget scream in pain. Don't touch Zabuza-sama with your filthy hands. He growled out. Gato's 2 guards reached to take out their swords, ready to defend their employer. In a burst of speed, the boy took out Senbon needles and held it to the men's throats, ready to kill them at a moment's notice. Haku, Zabuza said to the now known Haku, release them, to which Haku did. Gato waddled quickly back to the protection of his guards and went out the door, but not before saying his last bit. Don't fail me, Zabuza. You wouldn't like to see what happens to the people who fail me. There was silence in the room before Haku decided to speak. Why are we working for that man, Zabuza-sama? Because we need the money, was his short and simple reply. Haku looked at the man in the eyes. You know we can't win the fight. You said so yourself. Darui is an S-rank ninja while you are only high A rank, and the 3rd son probably beats me in speed with his armor. I know, but we have to try, Zabuza replied. Haku started to walk out the room. I'm going to look for some herbs. Don't try to strain yourself while I'm gone. In a forest. Haku calmly walked through the forest wearing a pink kimono instead of his hunter nin gear. His hair was down, touching his shoulders, making him look even more like a girl. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath and began to relax as he took in nature. Suddenly his eyes opened when his nose caught the scent of smoke and sweat. He decided to investigate. He followed the smell until he came to a peculiar sight. Haku saw the blonde boy who he realized was the 3rd raikage's son in the middle of a destroyed clearing, unconscious. Looking around, he saw burn marks on the trees and where a large boulder sat, which was twice as high as Haku and as wide, had a gaping hole in it where it looked like someone had punched it, quite hard too since it was pretty deep. Another peculiar thing were that some of the trees looked they had been cut down. But what really caught his attention is that it looked like it had been hit by a large drill and not by an axe. He glanced at the blonde boy and saw 7 swords surrounding him. He must be able to use all 7 swords. That takes some skill. I doubt Zabuza could do it, he concluded. Haku remembered the conversation back at the base. This boy was a major threat. He walked over to the boy and placed his hand above the boy's neck but froze an inch above his throat. Can I really kill him? Haku thought to himself. Zabuza had always told him that he was a flawed tool for not being able to kill. This showed right now where he was able to get rid of a major threat but couldn't perform the deed. Haku sighed before moving his hand to the boy's shoulder and gently shook him awake. En's eyes slowly opened where he saw a beautiful girl smiling at him. Hey sleepyhead, the woman greeted. Wow, she's really pretty, though not as pretty as Yugito-chan. En blinked. Where did that come from? En sat up as he gazed around the clearing. He then brought his attention to the girl in front of him. Hey, sorry, I was letting off some steam and I guess I fell asleep, he said, rubbing his head sheepishly. Haku decided to pretend to be a normal citizen and try to glean some information out of him. Oh, so you're a ninja? He asked curiously. En grinned as he pointed to his forehead protector. Yup. I'm a shinobi of Kumogakure, he said proudly. Kumogakure is that the one with the raikage as their leader? Haku asked, still pretending to be an innocent civilian who only knew the basics of ninja life. Yep. My dad's the raikage, En said proudly. Wow, that's cool. So you must be very well liked there, Haku commented. He noticed the flash of sadness in his eyes before they turned back to his usual bright cheeriness. Well, not really. Most people see me as a monster. The last part was murmured with En not intent on having Haku hear him, but Haku was an experienced ninja and heard the words. Haku was a bloodline user who grew up in Kiri during the bloodline purges. His own father killed his mother and tried to kill him when he found out they possessed the ice release, so he was very opposed to the word monster. I never did get your name, he said, hoping to change the subject. En blinked before grinning sheepishly. Sorry, my name is En, he said, rubbing the back of his head with his hand. En like the letter. That's a funny name, Haku said with a smile. Hey, it's unique. My brothers are A and B and we are probably the coolest people ever, En said, defending his name. My name is Haku, Haku said. Nice to meet you, Haku, En said happily. While they were talking, En's thoughts were confused. Her scent smells familiar. Where have I smelled it before? En thought to himself. Since En was a Jinchuriki, he had heightened senses. His sense of smell could match a Inuzuka's if he tried, but he knew the risks of having a heightened sense all the time. If he used his heightened hearing, if he heard a loud noise, it could knock him unconscious. Haku could tell this boy in front of him was a kind person. He decided to ask him something to really know what type of person he was. Tell me, En, what do you fight for? Haku asked him. En seemed surprised at the question but thought of his questions. What did he fight for? Some people fought for fame, others for money, some of the darker ones were just to kill, but what did he fight for? Haku could tell from En's expression that he was thinking deeply on his words. He decided to help him out. Tell me, En, do you have precious people? Haku asked him seriously. As Haku asked him that question, En had flashbacks of his loved ones, of his father training him and always being there as support. He remembered the day when his father told him of how proud he was, the happiness he felt. He thought of his eldest brother A, who always protected him, B, and Yugito fiercely from the many haters, who trained him and would always be there for him. He thought of B, who many considered the two as twins because of their same personalities. He thought of how they had found a way to become perfect Jinchuriki, a dream they had always wanted to achieve. He thought of the many times they had rapped to adjust to annoy him, and then running away in terror from A when he would give chase to shut them up with his fists, or usually his iron clawjutsu that would forever make him and B be afraid of their big brother when he gets angry. He thought of C-sensei and Darui-sensei who helped train him and never once thought of him, his brother or Yugito as monsters. He thought of Samui, Omoi, and Karui who knew that he was a Jinchuriki but still befriended him and Yugito while the others shunned them. And lastly he thought of Yugito, someone who he loved dearly and would give his life for her in a heartbeat without hesitation. As he thought of this, he realized that the feelings he felt for Yugito were different from the others. He realized right then that he loved her. He truly loved her and would do anything for her and to protect her with his life. As he thought this, he realized why he fought. He fought for the people who had given him acceptance, the ones who he knew truly had his back, his loved ones, his precious people. En nodded. Hi, I have my brothers, my father, Samui, Omoi, Karui, C-sensei, Darui-sensei, and Yugito-chan. They are the reason why I fight and grow strong, so I can protect them. He told Haku with fire in his eyes. Haku gave him a kind smile. Then you will become strong, since I believe that those who protect their precious people will become the strongest of all other ninja. He told En. So what are you doing in the woods, Haku? He asked. My friend is hurt and I was picking herbs to heal him, Haku replied. When he heard this, En realized who this person was, the hunter Nin. En thought. He decided to play it safe since he was still exhausted from his training. Here, I'll help. En and Haku spent the next couple minutes picking herbs while having small talk. I think this is enough, I should probably head back home. Haku said as he stood up and left the clearing, but stopped when he heard En call out. Haku, you know the next time we see each other we will be fighting, you know that, right? En said. Haku froze and his hand twitched to his side where he had Senbon needles stored there. He turned around to face En. How'd you figure it out? He asked flatly. When you killed Zabuza, I caught a brief scent of you. It took me a while to figure out where I smelled it when we were talking, but when you said you were picking herbs for a friend who was hurt made it clear to me. En told him, making Haku curse for saying that information. Since you asked me a question, it is only fitting that I ask you one. How can you fight for Gato? He is a monster. What he is doing to Wave is inhumane. Because we need the money. Haku told him. En frowned. Haku, you don't need to work with trash like Gato for money, you know what type of person he is. If the chance arrives he wouldn't hesitate to kill you, he told him, trying to make Haku see reason. Haku sighed. I know that, but where else will me and Zabuza find work? We're wanted ninja, we can't just get jobs from anybody. We have to get it from the crooks or we won't survive. Haku, you seem like a nice girl. He got confused when Haku's eye twitched but continued on. Why do you work with Zabuza? He's a wanted criminal. En asked Haku. Haku wanted to be truthful to the boy, so he decided to tell him of his life. Haku spoke of his life in Kiri, from when he killed his father and the mob, to living life on the streets, and finally meeting Zabuza, who gave him a reason to exist. The clearing was silent while En sat deep in thought. You know, we're a lot alike, Haku, he said. When he saw Haku's confused glance he gave a sad smile. You know that I'm the son of the raikage, right? When Haku nodded he continued on. But what you don't know is that me and my second eldest brother be not treated the same as my eldest brother A, who is greatly liked and respected. Haku was confused. That makes no sense. Why would the people of Kumo like and respect your eldest brother A but treat you like a monster? He asked him. En chuckled. So you heard that? He asked, to which Haku nodded. Well, this should make it clear. I'm a Jinchuriki, he said. Haku froze, unsure if he heard him right. You mean that you contain a bu, like Yagura? He asked him. En nodded. Yes, Yagura contains the 3 tails, right? Well, I contain the Kyubi, the strongest of the 9 bu. Haku couldn't believe his ears. Not only was he a Jinchuriki, but he also held the strongest of the 9. Haku then remembered what Zabuza had said that happened to all Jinchuriki, Yagura included, that Jinchuriki were thought of as monsters and few had ever had any happiness in their lives. En noticed that Haku hadn't run away from him in fear or disgust. I'm surprised you didn't run away, he said. Haku looked at him straight in the eyes. If I called you a monster or that you were the beast itself when I myself have been called that for my bloodline, I would just be a hypocrite. You are not the Kyubi, you are En, he said firmly. En smiled, happy that Haku could see the truth. Unlike many others, he had always noticed that those who had come from Kiri and held bloodlines had always treated the trio of Jinchuriki as normal people. They even defended them a couple of times too. He realized now that they probably didn't take kindly to people calling them monsters for what they held inside them, like the bloodline haters had done the same to those with bloodlines in Kiri. Thinking of this, En came to a brilliant idea. Haku, you and Zabuza could come to Kumo. He exclaimed. Whatever Haku was expecting, this was certainly not what he was expecting. What? En nodded fervently. Yay. It could work. Kumo would accept you with open arms since we highly appreciate having new bloodlines come to Kumo, and not to mention that Zabuza is AA rank ninja and a member of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist and has one of the 7 swords. Kumo is the second nation with the most swordsmen. If we had the demon of the bloody mist join our ranks and teach our swordsmen, we could have even greater swordsmen. Not to mention we would have added manpower. And it would be good for you too since you would have a place to call home and get money. You don't have to work with scum like Gato anymore. It's a win-win, En said, smiling at his plan. Haku thought about it. If he was honest with himself, he liked the plan. He was tired of moving from country to country, always looking behind his shoulder for Hunter Nin, to be able to finally have a home to call his own, not to mention that it was one of the 5 great nations and could protect them from Yagura, and to have people not fear him for his ice release and to respect him. It was a tempting offer, but would Zabuza think so too? Haku nodded and smiled at En. I'll tell Zabuza-sama of your idea. I agree with you on your plan. You will have our answer the next we meet. Until next time, En. En smiled at Haku. Bye, Haku-chan. He said. Haku's eye twitched again. En, I'm a boy, and with that left, leaving a sputtering En alone in the destroyed clearing. Once En gained control of his spluttering, he smiled. I hope you and Zabuza accept my offer, Haku. I know we can be good friends, En thought as he stood up to go back to Tazuna's house. As he climbed in through the window, he decided to not go to bed since he could wake them up. He just decided to sleep on the couch. When he got in a comfy position, he put his arms under his arms as he stared up at the ceiling, wondering if right now Haku was talking to Zabuza about his idea. With Haku back at base, Haku was in front of the secret entrance to Gato's base. He entered swiftly and silently. None of the guards even knew that he had entered. It showed his skill as an assassin, or maybe Gato was just bad at picking guards. As he walked down the hall, he heard footsteps. Deciding to not have the person know he was there, he jumped to the ceiling and stuck his hands and feet to the ceiling. Just as he did this, Gato and his guards appeared from around the corner. Gato had a cast over his arm from where Haku had broken it. He seemed to be talking to his guards. In a couple days my army of bandits will be here, and once Zabuza and his apprentice kill the Kumo Nin, I'll send them to finish them off. Or if Kumo does kill Zabuza, they are only 4 people, they can't fight over 200 men. With Zabuza dead, I can collect his bounty, and I bet that Darui guy has a big bounty too, and I bet many would pay for the son of the raikage. This is going to be perfect. Gato said with a cruel laugh, his head moving up and down with his laughter. It was a shame, really. If Gato had kept his head up for a second longer, he would have seen Haku's eyes glaring down at him from the ceiling. One thing was for certain though. Gato was so screwed. As Gato and his guards turned around another corner out of sight, Haku dropped to the ground without a sound. He glared angrily at the corner where the midget man had been seconds before. How dare he? Oh, he is going to pay for this. Nobody double crosses me and Zabuza-sama, although once Zabuza hears about this, it could help him decide to take En's offer. Haku thought. Zabuza's room. The demon of the bloody mist was still stuck in his bed. He was trying to pass the time by thinking of strategies to defeat Darui and the rest of the Kumo ninjas. Zabuza heard the door open softly, and turning his head toward the sound saw his female-looking apprentice. What surprised him was that Haku looked murderous, something he had never seen from the boy before. Haku, why do you look like you want to stab someone repeatedly with a dull sanban? Zabuza asked the boy. Haku took a deep breath to control his anger. I will tell you of why I am upset in a second, Zabuza-sama. I need to tell you something. I met the son of the 3rd raikage about 10 minutes ago, he bluntly told him. Zabuza sat straight up from his bed even though his wounds ached. You what? He yelled out. Haku just waited for his master to calm down before continuing on. Yes, I met him when he was passed out in the woods, he said. Zabuza glowered at him. And why didn't you kill him? He asked the boy angrily. Haku glared back, surprising Zabuza. He woke up the second I got near him, he told him, though it was the half-truth since he had the time to do it but hesitated, and En woke up. Zabuza, we can't fight these people. You were right with En being strong. Seeing Zabuza's enquiring look, he added, "That's his name. You seem to know something I don't, Haku, something involving the boy. What did you find out?" Zabuza asked his apprentice. "Enza Jinchuriki Zabuza-sama," Haku told him. Shock erupted on Zabuza's face, like Yagura. "Wait, which bu does he contain?" he asked, wondering which bu he held. "He contains the Kyuubi no Yoko," Haku said simply. Zabuza seemed to have a coughing fit, to find out this boy, who was not only the son of the third raikage and could do the lightning release armor and had an apparent bloodline that involves red lightning and was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. The boy would become a legend among legends. Zabuza sighed. "Haku, how are we going to defeat them? I can't fight Darui and win, and you can't fight En and the others, we're trapped," he concluded. Haku smiled, making Zabuza look at him confused. "En knew who I was. He realized that I was the hunter Nin. We talked and I told him why I worked for you and of my life in Kiri. He offered to take us to Kumo." Zabuza, Haku said. Zabuza looked at the boy shocked. "Why would he offer us to join Kumo? We're his enemy. Are you sure this isn't a trick?" Haku shook his head. "He wasn't lying, I could tell. He said that his father would welcome us with open arms due to me having a bloodline and you being a member of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist and an A-rank ninja who also wields one of the 7 swords. Kumo is the second nation with the most swordsmen. No doubt they would love to have someone of your skill teaching the next generation." A silence took the room as Zabuza thought it over. If he was honest with himself, he wanted to go to Kumo. Not only would Kumo keep them safe from Yagura, but also he could finally stop working for slime like Gato. As though Haku was reading his mind, he decided to tell Zabuza what he had overheard from Gato. Needless to say, when he found out how Gato was going to backstab them, Zabuza was less than pleased. A terrible amount of killing intent was felt all over the base. All the guards dropped to their knees out of pure fear, trying with all their willpower to not piss themselves. Haku waited patiently for Zabuza to calm down from his rage. When the key died down, Haku spoke. "So I'm guessing we're no longer going to work for Gato?" he asked calmly. "When I see that fat pig, I'm going to." Zabuza broke off before he grinned darkly. Haku knew that look. Whenever he saw that look, someone was going to die, painfully. "Haku, I have an idea," Zabuza said, still grinning that dark grin. Haku raised an eyebrow, curious to know what his master was thinking. "How about we pretend we don't know, and when we go to the bridge we tell the Kumo ninja that we will judge each other's strength by fighting, but we won't fight to the death, we will just make it look like it, and when Gato thinks it's safe for him to try and kill us, we and the Kumo ninja kill him," Zabuza said with a laugh. Haku smirked at the idea. "Surprisingly, I fully agree with you, Zabuza-sama, that pig deserves to die." Zabuza nodded his head in agreement, still grinning. "Now all we have to do is wait."